for you to take in. Um, I don't think the math is a science. I think that's a religion. We're supposed to take all these equations like miracles and add two numbers, and they magically become one new number. Nobody can say how it happens. You either believe it or you don't. Well, Calvin, as we all know, this is not the case because we can take numbers like 2 plus 2, and I can take two markers and you can give me two markers, and we can know just based on the number on our fingers that we have on our hand that we now collectively have four markers. That's pretty simple and pretty straightforward, and because that mathematical system works, others do as well. All right, we're on to 14 now. So if we understand that information is possible outside of our own experience, our own systems, our own methods, then we must be able to comprehend a different type of plane of existence outside of our sensory experience and outside of our systems of scientific discovery and logical deduction. All right, so let's take this to the next extreme. What do we need if we are going to move outside of our sensory experience? Well, our sensory experience is trapped, much like every animal. Every animal in the world has sensory experience. Okay, so if you have a dog, the dog can see and smell and feel and move and hear, etc., etc., etc. So the dog learns things. Your dog Scruffy knows that if it poops on your homework, that you're not going to be happy with it, and it knows that if it comes and nuzzles up to you when you're having a bad day, that you are going to be happy with the dog, and the dog is going to be conditioned to do what you want it to do. That is that we understand these things based on our position in time and in space. Okay, so your dog can only learn based on its sensory experience in a certain time in a certain space. If your dog or your gerbil or your goldfish or whatever lived in a different time with a different set of circumstances, its sensory experience might be completely different. And we human beings are the same exact way. We're on 15 now. We are completely held hostage to really our own time and our own place, our own. So if I was born, and I mean this is not controversial. These are not controversial things that I'm saying. These are things that you know and understand. We are in Fairfield County. If I was born in Bangladesh, if I was born in Iceland on May 14th, 1982, just in the same way that I was born here in Fairfield on May 14th, 1982, I would have a very different sensory experience. And all of that has to do with where I'm brought up, even if we take everything else out of the equation. All right, so I have the same parents, they have the same social status, we have the same race, etc., etc., etc. Just by virtue of being in a different geographic place, I would have a different experience. Same thing if I was born, instead of on May 14th, 1982, if I was born on May 14th, 1892. I would have, even if I was born in Fairfield, even if I was born to the parents of the same social status, of the same race, etc., 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 I would have a very, very different sensory experience. These are things that we know and we understand. So, in order for us to have synthetic a priori knowledge, we have to remove ourselves from that, because it needs to be knowledge that is true no matter what. It needs to be knowledge that is true no matter what time, place, geography, human population, etc. All right? It must be knowledge that we can never arrive at through deductive reasoning. All right? So what's the type of knowledge that we're talking about here? We're talking about things like intuition, emotion, desire, dreams, hopes, excuse me, etc., etc., etc. These are things that cannot be understood based on systems of deductive reasoning and or systems of sensory understanding. And if we can agree that these types of things exist, then we can move forward. So if you know something is wrong, and you cannot say that it's wrong based on your previous experience and or your proposed, deductive reasoning based on your future experience, then it must exist. So I take, because we're just coming out of the holiday season, I take the holiday season as an example of this. All right, there is nothing that says to us that December, the winter solstice, is supposed to be a special time of year. But it seems to be throughout all cultures and people, etc. And if you look at it, we have all these different religious traditions that kind of coincide with the season. I mean, we're pretty close to Ramadan. There's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa, there's Christmas, there's the solstice from the pagan traditions going all the way back. All of these kinds of winter celebrations are meant to, celebrate the end of winter, more or less, and the coming of the light. The solstice is the coming of the light, and now things are going to start getting better. So it has a real sense of renewal, and I think that you will have this experience of having, good feelings around this time, unless you have a sensory experience that overpowers that intuition. So for instance, if you had a family member who was close to you pass away during this time period, if sensory experiences that really kind of can defeat that intuitive knowledge. I hope this makes sense to you, because this is why it would be difficult to explain Kant, because he depends on intuition. All right, so here we are in 16. It sounds like Plato. Well, yes, it does. It does sound like Plato. Plato did not believe that we could reach the realm of the forms, but that we would continue to keep trying. And Plato believed that the forms probably existed. We're off and on about whether or not the realm of the forms is real. Kant, on the other hand, as you can see, defines our own world as a phenomenal world. All right, so then as you can see here on 16, pheno in Greek means appearances, or literally come to light. So he's referring to the world as we understand it. The phenomenal world is not in the way that you would understand the phenomenal as being something that is extraordinary, but this is truly ordinary. All right, and that could be a point of confusion. And he also postulates the nominal world from the Greek, which is perceived, or that which we understand, think of, imagine. All right, this nominal world is the place that we cannot reach. We can never reach it. That's the big point between Plato and Kant. That's a point of contention. And here we are now on 17. All right. So is this kind of like a matrix-like reality? Are we talking about the fact that we live in a fake world, but a real world exists somewhere out there? Much like Berkeley would say that I live with inside my mind, but that's not the sum of the human existence. No. What we need to understand is that if the nominal world is a place where we are inspired, it's better to think of it as if you were an artist and you were to find a muse, if you will. All right, so a person or a thing or a place that inspires you and helps you to creatively kind of accomplish your tasks. That's what the nominal world was meant to be. It's something that's an inspiration, if you will. And therefore, it's not a place like heaven. It's not a realm like the forms. It's not somewhere we can go, because it's the opposite of everything that we understand. So we live in a physical world that's ruled by time and space and and understanding. The nominal world is the opposite of all of that. It's a place, or it's not even a place. It's an understanding, a realm, whatever you want to call it, where there is no such thing as time, there is no such thing as space, and there is no such thing as reason. But yet truth exists there, because the truth kind of pokes through and makes us understand what is right and what is wrong. Okay? We're going to stop right here. We're on 18. I'm going to take a little break because we've been going at it for about 25 minutes now. And we'll be right back. All right? So grab yourself a cupcake or a nice little drink, and we'll see you in a minute. All right, welcome back. Thank you for putting up the little break. We're getting a little tuckered out there. So here we are on slide number 18. My boy Zach Morris is hanging out there. A little timeout. So the big question becomes, if the world that Kant has envisioned, if you recall, we were dealing with the nominal world and we were dealing with the phenomenal world. All right. So the big question becomes is, well, there's a couple of good questions, but first and foremost, one of the problems that's waged against Kant is the idea that, well, how can we really know that we're any different than animals? Your nominal world assumes that we as human beings are somehow better, and yet we have all of these needs. And Kant said, well, yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. Human beings have sensibilities that they need to take care of. If I don't eat, if I do not drink water, fluids, if I do not relieve myself, if I attempt to stop breathing, all right, there's very serious physical, material needs that I need to take care of in my life. So that's true. There is sensibility, but human beings, he would say, and I think I would tend to agree, and I think that you should as well. We have the extra added ability to understand things. All right, we can organize data and we can do something with it. All right, you know, the dogs have been around for about as long as we have. Fish, we all descended, evolved from the fish, and yet they have not done a lot with the information that they've developed over millions upon millions of years. Therefore that kind of speaks to the idea that we have the capacity to organize data. We have a consciousness. We have the capacity to organize data and do something with it. What's interesting about this, as you can see here at the bottom of 18, is that when we look at human development, we become cognizant of technology and the development that future human beings will have. All right, so not only can we see the past, we can organize data from the past and then understandably learn from it. If you recall Marx, that's the idea of, and Hegel, that's the idea of conflict history, that we become better as a society over time. We can faithfully, and we have to, live in the present. We have to live in the present where we are. That's what we're stuck in. But we can envision a future, period. We can envision a time that is not now, when we will not exist, when presumably things will be better. People who can do this, we consider to be visionaries. People who can invent something like an iPod or things like that. And that's why it's so funny when we look back at the